the Black Robe podcast. It's your girl, Anjanae Slaughter here, sitting with my dear and true friend, Miss Carol Mitchell. How are you doing,
I'm
Carol?
sending you a virtual hug.
Oh, I miss you so much. Seriously, I miss the in person. We're gonna get back to it. The state's starting to open up a little bit.
I know.
So
COVID is just not kind to us. It just, with all these new mutations and variations, I
yeah.
feel like I'm caught in some sort of a bad horror flick. Like every time I test and I'm good, then there's a new strand that comes out. So we may be in this environment for at least the balance of this year.
Yeah, unfortunately, and it doesn't seem like we there is any end coming anytime near. So we got to make the best out of it. We got to keep things fun and lively, and staying connected. So I'm just happy that we're back. We're
Me
back
too.
again.
Me
You
too.
know.
I can't get a vaccine though. I went online and I know a lot of people are having this problem. Went online, took their little survey, and got up early in the morning and checked my browser to see whether or not I could get in there and make an appointment. Closed. It's just
Wow.
they're not doing a very good job of making it easy for people to get in and get those appointments. And I live in a multi generational household,
Yeah.
so I'm eligible because I'm over, the big 50.
Yeah.
Then I want to take my mother, who is 85. She can't even get a shot.
Wow.
So it's a problem. We still have a little bit of a challenge with implementation. I wish I was young and strong and invincible and going to live forever like all of you young people think you are.
Like we think we are. That's the thing. Think.
Yeah.
Emphasis on the key word. But with faith, we'll get through. So
Yes.
I hope that you guys are keep staying prayed up, right, during this time, as these vaccines start to trickle and the phases start to. I don't know what's going on in their plan, but we got to remain optimistic. Yeah.
Yes, we do. A couple housekeeping things because we are going to be, oh my goodness, I'm excited about this conversation tonight because it's about the Dollarini.
Money, money,
Money,
money.
money,
Hey.
money, money, money,
I know.
money.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We have a guest in the house tonight. Okay, he's actually a true and dear friend of mine, business partner. But before we dive into the juicy stuff, Carol, what are your housekeeping items?
Housekeeping. This is the week that we must get on our computers and sign on and find out how we can support all of the policing legislation that's been created in the House and in the state House of Representatives and the state Senate. There are a whole list of police accountability, police reform, police tactics bills. We put them all on the IBJ's website. So you have no excuse for not knowing which bill and where it is in committee. As of today, we put on there, here's where it is. And it's super simple to just go online and click on the fact that you want to go pro or con against the bill. It's you don't even have to go down to Olympia anymore.
Yeah.
So be a participant, not just an observer of the process. Don't complain about a system and then not participate and activate yourself when you have a chance to do something about it. Sadly, some of our more tenured legislators are not supportive of some of these bills. And I don't know what the reason is behind that, but young people who are the most impacted by some of these tactics, by some of these policies, really need to rally
Oh
and
yeah.
show up in a big way and comment on these bills.
Definitely. I
Okay?
know I'm going to be sharing about these bills. I believe the deadline is what, February 15th to.
February 15th is the deadline. So please, yes, encourage people to call their legislators, email them, comment on the bills, you're only getting like 90 seconds to comment. So how badly could you mess up something in 90 seconds? You don't even get 3 minutes to talk anymore. I
Wow.
was I was watching a hearing and the person would be just getting started and they would cut them off. So send
Wow.
your written comments or just vote pro because it's going to be amended anyway before it's all finished. Okay? All
Okay.
right.
All right.
Ready to talk about money
About money. Yes,
and wealth
definitely.
building and real estate in particular as a strategy for wealth building. Let's
Yes.
go.
Let's do it. We got my guy, Gary the Great, over at from Caliber Home Loans on our podcast with us tonight. Let's bring him on in.
Yes,
Let's bring
indeed.
in Gary the Great.
There he is. Why you call him Gary the Great?
What's up, Gary? I don't know. Maybe we should ask Gary why he's self-claimed Gary the Great.
Self-proclaimed, huh?
It's got
Hi,
a good
Gary.
ring to it. It's got a good ring to it.
Hello, what's going on, ladies?
Yes.
So why do they call you Gary the Great?
Just something I came up with back in high school, and I stuck with it. You know, I think highly of myself. I like to big up myself and just manifest my own personal thoughts. So it started off as just something that I'm Gary, but I'm not just. Matter of fact, it started off as Good Gary. I don't know if you guys ever heard of his music, but it started off as Good Gary. I sat on that for a little bit, and then I leveled up to Gary the Great. Gary the Great ever since. So I just kind of rocked.
He leveled up.
From Good Gary
like
to Gary the Great.
I love it. Growth is all about what we're about, right, Gary? Absolutely. So can you just real quick, give our viewers a little background on who you are, where you're from, how you even got into lending and to be with Caliber, where you're at right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born and raised Seattle, Washington, South Seattle. Grew up in Seattle my whole life. Pretty much raised by my grandma. She really took care of me and enabled a lot of the things I did in life. I went to O'Day High School, so I went to an all boys private Catholic high school, which was an experience to say the least. When I first got there, I wasn't too happy, to be completely honest. I went from Meany Middle School, which was it was very diverse. Honestly, I remember there was at one point I can count the amount of white people on one hand. That's what Meany was like. And then I went to O'Day High School and it was the complete opposite. So my world was kind of flipped upside down. It was a different environment in the classroom. But ultimately, they ended up turning into brothers over time as I matured and worked through high school. Everything went well. And then I went to actually when I graduated high school, I didn't even realize for sure if I was going to go to college. I remember having a conversation with my grandmother and she said, it's not, are you going to college? It's which college are you going to? So she changed the narrative. Yeah, she changed that thought process of, I don't know if I'm going to college. And she was like, no, it's which college are you going to? I ended up visiting out at Washington State University and I just fell in love with the campus and the energy there. So I decided to attend Washington State University in 2011 when I graduated high school. When I first got there, I didn't even know what I wanted to major in. I was a little bit lost in the sauce. I knew I wasn't going to let myself fail, but I wasn't achieving at the level that I knew I could. I was, getting B's and C's and I'm just like, man, I'm a smart dude. Like, what's up with me? Like, why am I not, thriving? Or why do I not feel this energy when I go to class? And I ended up taking this class called Human Development, Communication and Life Skills. And it ended up kind of changing the trajectory of my entire college career. I met a teacher who believed in me. She got me a job on campus. And then I ended up choosing my major, which was human development and psychology. I did a human development major, which is the study of literally, conception of humans all the way till death, the psychology behind it, the development from a physical standpoint, all of that stuff. And then I decided to minor in psychology just because I'm very interested in motivation and inspiration and kind of what drives the, human beings in general. So I ended up falling in love with that. And my GPA like doubled from freshman year to junior year. And I ended up getting the best grades I ever got in my life and, the back end of my college career. So after college, I graduated and I went into a lot of people that have human development majors. They go into like, counseling or they go into school type of just getting into the school system, getting into nonprofits. So I had to do a internship with a nonprofit in Seattle, which I had experience with a nonprofit. It went well, but I kind of realized it can get a little messy sometimes. It depends on who you work with. But I was like, I don't know. Like I love this, but I'm also trying to get to some money. So I ended up getting an offer from Target as an executive team lead, and they offered a pretty good salary. So I went that route, and it was interesting at first. I got there. I grinded for a year, but I realized that I was just burning my wheels in the mud. I wasn't actually developing. I was just going to a job every day. I didn't feel like I was really developing my skill set, but I learned a lot about myself as a person and as a leader. I was 22 years old leading a team of 40 people. And I was just like, I learned a lot about myself because obviously I had to earn a lot of trust and a lot of respect from people who had been at the company before, but I was coming in as their boss at 22.
Now, Gary, now I got to stop you on that because I have been to my local Target, and most of the people working there are female and over 22. So I'm just wondering what kind of experience you had trying to tell Carol Mitchells what to do. When you were only 22 years old and you had a bunch of Carol Mitchells, strong-willed women,
that's a great question,
to motivate. How did you prepare yourself for that?
I couldn't prepare. I just had to show up and learn. Honestly, I got hit on the chin a few times. I got, not physically slapped up, but, figuratively slapped up a few times. And I learned a lot. And I had people walk out on me. I had people quit. I had people who, some people didn't respect me initially, and it didn't matter what I did. And I had to learn about that too, that it's not necessarily about trying to people please everybody. It was just about showing up and giving the best I can do. If I was showing up and giving my all or showing my willingness to work hard and do things for people and they didn't appreciate that, I couldn't sit here and beat myself up too much, right? I had to keep going.
Hey, they look better going than they do coming.
Than they do. Exactly. And it gave me the opportunity to kind of build my team too and shape my team. But I also realized that the people I worked with at Target, they weren't necessarily in my best interest either. Some of the leaders that I was working with, it was more so of it just felt like a get the job done thing type of thing, but they didn't really care about my well-being. It was like, if you need to work 16 hours today to get the job done, you're going to work 16 hours. And if you need to work 16 hours tomorrow, then you're going to work 16 hours. And that's going to be that, I realized that wasn't what I wanted. And
retail is a grind. It really is, but it's the only place that a lot of young people can really get their start, because part of what we're going to talk about today is wealth building and how real estate can be a big part of that vision. My first job in high school was at the J.C. Penney's candy counter.
Wow,
and back in the day,
what's a candy?
They had a candy counter back in the What are we talking about? See's Candy? Or are you talking about J.C. Penney's?
J.C. All of the major department stores had a candy counter. And I would go home smelling like chocolate every day. But let me tell you, even now, I can look at the design on a piece of chocolate and tell you what flavor the filling is. That's a skill set. That's a valuable skill set.
Yeah, definitely.
I love that.
Definitely. And Gary, I can relate so much with your experience, just like as a young professional, right? Coming out of college, my first job was actually in HR at a private corporation, right? So not a nonprofit, a very for-profit company that cared about fast pace and production, that cared about union grievances and compliance, that were trying to just avoid any sort of audit or, fine, right? And so I too was in charge. I had a lot of people under me. Our company was a global company, but I was the sole HR person for all of Washington. So I had 500 employees under me. And because it was so for profit, I had all the work was on me, right? They're trying to maximize their profits as a corporation.
You want to pay more than one salary.
So exactly. No, you could do this whole thing, right? So there was
one person for 500 people. What kind of ratio is that?
And it's in their minds, right? I'm not having to deal with these 500 people on a day-to-day basis, but if there's some sort of disciplinary action that needs to happen to one of those individuals, that falls under my scope. So does the onboarding and all the other day-to-day tasks, right? But my point is, I also had to work side by side with people that were twice my age, right? And sometimes I was in more of an authoritative role because in HR, I need this paperwork, or these files aren't going to be completed, and then my boss is going to be mad at me. I'm trying to onboard people that came out of the military and that are veterans, because this was a security company. But really trying to navigate in that workspace and get the respect that I, really deserved, it all came from me just having that strong work ethic. They weren't going to respect me because of my title. No, and they definitely weren't going to respect me because of my experience. To them, I didn't have no experience. Although I had a degree, and a lot of them didn't, because you don't need a degree to, work in an office setting, but that did not matter. They just saw at the time, 22-year-old, black girl. So I don't even really look professional if I'm not, straight haired, coming into the office. So that was another challenge that I had to face, right? Trying to get this respect. I'm capable. I'm doing the work. I'm closing these files, but I'm a young person.
Like extra layer.
Yeah. It was definitely a barrier, and I can't say how rewarding it was once I left corporate world. Like, seriously, because it wasn't just the lack of respect that I was receiving from my peers. I wasn't getting any sort of benefit from my work, right? My work was benefiting this company and, their files and making sure their profit margins are good. But what was it doing for my passion? I went to school for law, always been really passionate about my community. And now I'm spending 8 to 10 hours making good salary. Good. I didn't have to struggle at all. Like, my bills were paid. I was traveling every other month. I was good. But I wasn't getting that reward that I'm making a difference, that we all come out of college so eager to make a difference, right? We all think that we're kind of, symbols of change, right? So
that's the difference, I think, between your generation and the one when I was in my 20s. We were strictly there to get that dollar ring,
to get that money.
Period.
And we would do our parents exposed themselves to asbestos and all kinds of hazards in the workplace because it was about the money, about stability, about retirement plans and all of that. If you liked your job, that was a bonus. Right. So but Gary, back to you and your situation. When did you transition out of retail then and move toward what you're doing now? What was that evolution like?
Yep. So real quick too, Anjanae, I definitely relate to what you're saying as far as having that passion. And I just remember they used to want me to get mad at people at Target for not putting products on shelves fast enough. And my soul would not let me do it. Like deep down in my, don't get me wrong, there be times where I would get a little fired up, like, hey, come on, do your job. Like, we know why we're here. Let's handle business. But then there's the other side, they're like, Gary, they're not going fast enough. Doesn't that get you mad? And I used to be like, not really. Like, I'm supposed to get mad at these people for waking up at 4 a.m. and coming and putting on this product on the shelf as fast as they could. But anyways, I kind of came to that realization that everybody has a passion outside of what they do. And for some reason or another, they have a barrier that stops them from pursuing it. And that's what I realized too at an early age when I was at Target. I'm like, you like computer science. You got a degree in computer science, but you're putting products on the shelf and you're not pursuing what you like to do. You're in a rock band. You like to do music, but you're sitting here putting products on the shelf or doing maintenance at Target and you're not going to pursue it. So it kind of just had my mind thinking about pursuing passions. But anyway, so I ended up transitioning from there and I went to this company called Cintas, which is a service company for businesses. It's a Fortune 500 company as well, all about that bottom line, all about that money. But I went on there as a management trainee again. So more leadership, more management. I did that for 2 years. I got a very well-rounded experience in the professional world. I learned so much just at a multifaceted level. And then at the end of it, I became a recruiter. I kind of ended up blazing my own path. And I said I wanted to become a recruiter because I just felt like my skill set and my personality was a good match for it. I felt like I could do it better than anybody. I knew what people wanted. And I was like, I want to become a recruiter. And I had some leaders support me. So they ended up putting me in a recruiter position. I was a sales recruiter for the whole Western region of the state. And I had a blast with it. Like I had a blast. I was having fun. I was cooking. And then COVID hit. And guess what? They wasn't hiring. They was firing. They started firing. So you don't need recruiters anymore when COVID hit. So they gave me some options as far as what I can do for the time being until recruiting came back. And I wasn't really happy about it, but I was understanding because it was COVID. And I was like, I should be lucky to have a job right now. I'm really not going to complain. This company is treating me well. I'll do what I need to do. But ultimately, I ended up getting a call from my loan officer. I had bought a condo about a year ago, and I got a call from my loan officer out of the blue. And he goes, Gary, are you looking for a job? And I was like, not really. What's going on? Like, talk to me. And he was just like, well, I'm growing this team. you know, I'm considering people that I want there. And actually, you're the only person I call. You're the first person I called. And he was like, I know you don't have a finance background. I know that. He was like, but your personality, man. And I just see you as somebody that, you know, I'll show you everything I know. He was like, you just come and be Gary. I'll show you everything I know. Don't worry about the finance part. He was like, you don't need a finance degree. I was like, because I ran away from math in college. I'll be the first person to say that. I was like, nope. Human development, no math. Let's go. So I was the first person, but again, I just found somebody who believed in me. He believed in me, and he gave me an opportunity, and I decided to kind of gamble on myself, and it's been good ever since. So now I am officially a loan officer for Caliber Home Loans. I work for the Kirkland branch, which is actually the #1 producing branch in Washington when it comes to home loans. We do a lot of volume. We do very well. So I'm working with a lot of great people, and I'm learning a ton. So that's how me and Anzhane met too. Is from me becoming a loan officer, and I'm so glad we met and crossed paths, and we've already been, you know, collaborating and building and just teaching equity and teaching real estate. So that's kind of how I made that transition, was a person calling me and believing in me. That's really what it came down to.
Well, we need to make sure we get your digits so that we can we'll put that in our podcast on our webpage if there's a place to reach out to you if people want some information, because we talked in preparation for this podcast about how important owning your home really is as a wealth building strategy for young people. Both you and Anjanae said she bought her house in her 20s, and you are owning in your 20s. Mm-hmm. So I think there's some misperceptions that young people have about the process. And so maybe the two of you can talk a little bit about what's the first thing you would do. When I bought my first house at 19, the first thing I did is went and pre-qualified. I wanted to know for sure. You know, it's sort of like going into the grocery store. You want to know for sure that your debit card is going to cover your groceries. So, when I got ready to buy my first house, I wanted to be pre-qualified and know exactly how much money I had available. And my first house was $48,000.
Wow. I wish that was
that was big money back in the day.
True.
Yeah.
So talk to people about, the two of you maybe share a little bit about the process that people need to be prepared for if they want to at least find out, can they qualify for a loan?
Mm-hmm. I would say you're spot on essentially with getting pre-qualified, but even before then, it kind of goes hand in hand. It's having the conversation with the right people or with the right person. You know, it's understanding all the things that a pre-qualification embodies. And what's the difference between a pre-qualification and a pre-approval? I'll lay that out really quick. A pre-approval, well, I'll start off with a pre-qualification. Pre-qualification is essentially us getting all your information about your income, your assets, your credit score, your debts, things of that nature. And we take your word for it. And we say, based off of what you told us, you are or you aren't pre-qualified for this amount. And that's based off of your word. To get pre-approved, we verify all the information that you gave us. So now we're calling employers, we're getting verification of employment, we're pulling your credit score, we're doing a hard credit pull, and we're understanding that, okay, everything you told us, it checks out. Awesome. Okay, you are pre-approved according to the conversation we had, and we can give you that thumbs up to go house hunting. But it really does start off with that initial conversation and understanding that, and not being afraid to have that conversation, because I think a lot of people don't even get to the point of pre-qualification because they're like, oh, to get pre-qualified, don't I have to get a hard credit pull? No, not to get pre-qualified. You don't need a hard credit pull. It's a free conversation. It's an easy conversation. We're asking about your income. Again, we're asking about your debts. We're asking about your credit score. Once we get a grasp of that type of stuff, we can tell you right there pretty quickly if you're somebody who, you know, how much money do you have set aside? We can figure that out really quickly as far as if you're somebody who actually can get pre-approved for a house. So I would say simple as that. Keep it simple to the point. It starts off with that conversation. And Anjanae, anything you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I would just piggyback off of that. Definitely, education is the biggest barrier, really, when it comes to providing access to home ownership. Because, like you mentioned, Carol, there's all these myths around real estate and around home owning. You know, one of them is that you need this huge 20% down payment in order to get in on a house. Well, once you start opening up the conversation, you'll learn that you really only need 3 to 5% to get into a house. That is a huge difference. You know, you went from $80,000 at 20%. Now we're talking about $10,000 to $12,000 for a down payment. So that's something that is more grasp, you know, that's more within arm's reach, right? And then I would also talk about the down payment assistance options. The state has so many programs built around access to homeownership, especially for marginalized communities. So if you're a person of color, you know, the state understands and they know that homeownership is low for Black families, right? They know that. They know that it's low for Hispanic families. So they're trying to provide equity when it comes to real estate by offering down payment assistance programs so that we can get more people, at least their foot in the door. We can at least get you owning a home, you know, and building that equity right there. So definitely
Let's
education.
talk about credit score, because you know that is something that scares the hell out of most folks. But it's like, oh no, you're gonna run my credit report. Those people get nervous, start sweating, heart palpitations happening. It's like, oh Lord.
Not another.
So how important is credit score in the scheme of all of the things, Gary and Anzhane, that lenders look at to decide whether to approve a person for a loan?
It's very important. I'm just going to say that first and foremost, it's very important. And if you don't have, as of right now, if you don't have a credit score of 620 or above, we can't even entertain you in reality. And that's just the way the game goes right now. So 620 is the minimum. And once you get to 620, in a lot of cases, depending on where your credit score ranges, it can also determine what type of program that we're able to utilize for you as well. So the higher your credit score, the more options you're going to have. And it really is, once you get closer to that 700, 720 range is when you're able to even start saving money on rates, because now you're the type of borrower that a lender can trust. Okay. You've proven your credit worthiness. You've proven that you have a track record of being able to borrow money and pay money back. And that's really what a credit score indicates. Are you somebody who is able to borrow money and pay it back in a timely manner? And that's exactly what we look at and we consider. And people have to get into that thought process of understanding what things are and what things truly are. We get confused sometimes and we run away from credit score, but your credit score is just a reflection of, are you credible? Are you somebody who, again, borrows money and pays it back? And if you're not, then why would we give you $250,000 plus more dollars to borrow if you ain't gonna pay it back? It doesn't make sense, right? So credit score is very important. And also you can't be afraid of that type of stuff, because that is a part of your just like Anjanae was saying, like there's barriers to entry. And if you don't have a 620, guess what? That's a barrier of entry to be able to get it don't matter how much money you got. It don't matter. A lot of different things don't matter if you don't have your credit score right. So first and foremost, get that credit right. And then, you know, we can have the conversation about other things.
But what if you're a young person? You know, I'm just going to use my grandson as an example, right? He's 21. He's working at the subway, right?
Yeah.
He's got his first car. You know, he was able to talk somebody into selling him a fairly decent car because he's working. But, you know, he's never had a credit card or anything where he had to borrow and pay it back, because he was always, you know, it was a cash, whatever he had in his pocket, that's what he spent. He didn't do things on credit. So now what do you do in a situation where a person just doesn't have a lot of credit experience, credit history? What do you recommend they do to get that credit score up so that they could potentially qualify to buy a place?
Great question. I would say you really you got to get the process started. You got to get a credit card. Honestly, you get one credit card. You start off simple. You really want to be below the 30% utilization mark. So whatever your credit card limit is, you want to keep it right around 30% or less. You don't want to just keep running that credit card all the way up and then paying it down and run it all the way up, or paying minimum payments and that type of thing. We like to see the credit card utilization below 30%. But if you're somebody who's young, that's why it's so important to get the conversation started and get ahead of the game. If you're 21 years old, you know, you want to buy a home in your 20s, 21, it's a perfect time to get that first credit card and start and take your time with it. Learn the game a little bit. Charge gas at first, right? Start
Oh,
off
get a
with
gas card.
exactly stuff that you already have to spend money on. Gas and groceries is a good way to start utilizing that
Oh my
credit card
goodness.
because that stuff you already have to buy, right? You already
Yeah.
have to buy it. And it's consistent. You're gonna do it. So you just have to be disciplined. And it comes back again, credit worthiness. Are you a worthy borrower? Don't start, getting happy with that credit card and just start swiping and then not paying it back. Pay it on time every single month, and then next thing you know, that credit score will start growing incrementally, rather quicker than you may even imagine. So I would say really start off with that, getting that credit line started up, get that first credit line, and just start slowly taking your time and learning the game a little bit. And anything, if there's anything you would want to add on that, Anjane, but I would say get that first line of credit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we know that it's possible, right? I bought my first house at 23, but I know people that have bought houses. I mean, Carol, you were 19, and I don't know what year it was when you were 19, but
I ain't telling.
it's okay. That's okay. I mean, it is totally possible. You only have to be 18 years old to buy a house. The way I was able to build credit at such a young age was actually through a student credit card. Very low limit. It was through my bank that my mom, helped sign me up for, right? So she might have been on the account, but it's a student bank account with a student credit card, low limit of like $300. But
Right.
again, staying under that 30% and paying the full balance, right, will build your credit faster than you know. I mean, young people honestly should have more of an advantage when it comes to strong credit scores because you don't have as much history to prove that you are not credible.
Right.
So if you start out the game and you're on top of it and you're paying your stuff and you're staying under 30, you can have an 800 score at 21 years old, and then, man, you get finance. As long as you got an income, you can get finance for, whatever, right? I mean.
So what about people now that are unemployed, right?
Well, Carol, not everybody can get a house.
Now that's what I want to be. I want us to be real, right? I want us to be real. This is not Disneyland. This is not Fantasyland.
Yeah, no, this is
if your credit score is under 620, there are places you can go that will help you get your credit score, clean up your credit report, get old stuff off, and kind of help you get back on track. But if you just lost your job and you're unemployed, how does employment affect your ability to qualify for a home loan?
Great questions. That's a tough one. Honestly, you have to have income. And that's really the way the cookie crumbles. And we also don't, you cannot use unemployment money to qualify. That's not qualifying income either. So you really want to have a job, and you also want to have 2-year work history at the same job. And that's also important. And I think that's something that a lot of people forget, and a lot of people don't think about. And then also, one example I see in the Black community in particular, and I think this is important to hit on, is barbers. If you're a barber who has been doing their thing for a while, but if you're not documenting your income or you're not paying taxes on your income, we cannot qualify you.
Say what?
Okay. You can't verify something that
you better pay those B&O taxes.
You better pay them, because it'll come bite you, and it'll be a barrier of entry into ownership. And again, that's just another way that a decent amount of people, I think, kind of shoot themselves in the foot in as far as getting themselves into home ownership and being able to build generational wealth. So we want to see steady work history. We want to see that you can hold a job and that you can keep income coming in. If you're somebody who changes jobs every single month, there's risk factor involved in that, right? So now you're becoming a risky borrower. We want to minimize risk. We want people who show credit worthiness. We want people who keep a consistent job. We want people who also show likelihood to continue employment and likelihood to keep income coming in. So it's not only that you got a job, what's the likelihood you're going to keep that job and be able to continue to pay it forward and pay that, because when we sign a mortgage, in most cases, we're doing 30 years. So we need to know that there's a good likelihood that you're going to be able to keep this money coming in these payments for this mortgage every single month. Are you the type of person who's able to do that? So income, I mean, honestly, a big part of the reason why the housing crisis happened was because there was faulty loans that were being given out to people who didn't have income. Right? No income, no assets. They still were giving out loans. And that's what can happen. Yeah. Exactly. That's what happens when you give loans to people who aren't making money.
Now, there is a little silver lining with COVID in this whole, I mentioned this a little bit on our live yesterday, but with all the stimulus coming, this is opportunity for people to pay off debt. If your debt is the reason why your credit is low because you owe, whether it's hospital bills or whatever the case might be, use this money, this extra uncounted for, because none of us accounted for this extra money, and pay some of that debt off so that you can get your score over 620.
Now, folks is at Target and Walmart.
I am
well, they gonna stay in their apartment buildings and not able to pay down no
well. I mean, I could tell when the stimulus money happened. I didn't qualify like a lot of other folks didn't qualify, but I could tell when the stimulus dollars were coming through because the lines in my local grocery store would be like triple what they normally were. Folks were just buying and buying and buying stuff. And to your point, instead of saving or paying down debt, which one is more important? Having a large amount of money saved for a down payment or having that debt to income ratio right? Which one do you think has the greater weight for home ownership?
Ooh, great question. I would say they're almost of equal importance because one wouldn't be relevant without the other. If you're not able to have a down payment for a home, then it doesn't matter what your debt to income ratio looks like. You can't put any money down. But
we do know about the down payment assistant options too, which I do try to, although I tell people about them through my classes and through, any sort of conversation that we have around real estate. I also want to encourage people not to use them because with the down payment assistance, I mean, you're asking for assistance. So you're going to have to sacrifice maybe the lowest rate that you could have had if you would have had the down payment in liquid cash, instead. But it's an option, right? It's something to not discourage, especially young people who don't have 12 G's in the bank. It's a good way to kind of get your foot in the door. So I would definitely say that debt to income ratio is huge when it comes to your purchasing power. As a real estate agent, I can tell you that the other buyers out here, they got a lot of purchasing power. I mean, it's such a seller's market and it's so competitive that houses are not going for the asking price. They're going for way above that because there's all these buyers willing to pay that.
Maybe it's time for me to sell.
Carol, we need to have a consultation. We can talk about it.
We can. We have to.
We can definitely talk about. We can have
real quick, Anjanae too.
Time for the Dollarini.
a good point that you made too about taking that stimulus money. One small example I have with that is that there's somebody I was working with whose credit score was like 613. So remember we talked about that 620 mark, and we looked into his credit score a little bit and we dug a little bit deeper and we were able to give him some quick advice on, hey, we found this credit line that if you pay this off, if you pay this $400 off right now, today or tomorrow, it will push you above 620. So that's a small example of you take that $2,000, you pay off a certain credit line, it may be able to get you from unqualified to qualified depending on your situation. So that's a really good point, Anjanae. Take that money and do something useful with it.
Well, we got to get ready to close, but you two have a February 20th event coming up that we want to make sure people know about and find out how they can get registered so that you can explain all of this. And young people, other young people and old people too, who may be renting right now, you need to show up for this class as well. You want to talk a little bit about your event?
Absolutely. So this one, unfortunately, is not going to be with my friend Gary over here.
We're going to get there.
Not yet, but he's exactly soon to be, coming soon. We'll have some first-time homebuyer class with this dynamic duo. But as far as February 20th, I am partnering with another lender to teach a first-time homebuyer class. These are completely free, and it's 100% virtual. So it's open and public for everyone to attend. The amazing thing about this class is that at the end of it, you will receive a certificate that is valued up to $12,000 for down payment assistance. So this is exactly that down payment assistance that I was talking about. Keep
Wow.
your savings in your bank so that you can pay your mortgage the first couple months, or that you can furnish your place, and you can use this down payment assistance just to get yourself in. There's also going to be tons of education and just information around home ownership and lending, around the process from A to pay, the whole thing. So you guys, 10 a.m. February 20th. I'm gonna, I have all the information on my Facebook page, Anjanae Slaughter, or Sold by Anjanae, on Facebook and Instagram. But I'll also shoot you the link and the Eventbrite. Carol, maybe we can get it on the IBJ's page.
Yeah.
If you guys wanna kind of get that information there. But definitely, Gary and I go. Gary, tell them about 28 days of equity. Come
I
on,
was
we gotta
just
talk
gonna say
about
real
28
quick.
days.
So Anjanae and I did partner on an idea that we came up kind of on a whim, and we ran with it, and we were able to kind of get some great results relatively quickly. But we decided to partner up for the month of February, with our hashtag 28 days of equity. And it's really about spreading awareness and empowering people through educating them. We not only highlight, people and business owners and entrepreneurs, but we're also dropping knowledge as far as mortgage facts, real estate facts. Just every day you're getting a little tidbit, a little bite-sized piece to digest when it comes to ownership, which goes hand in hand with equity and building wealth. So every Monday, we're going live throughout the entire month, where we take some time personally, about 15 to 30 minutes, where we just talk about the different topics that we share throughout the week, and just continuing to empower people to step into ownership and give them that knowledge that they need.
I love that play on words, because when Anjanae first said 28 days of equity, I thought, oh, you doing some diversity training? What does that have to do with home ownership? Are you talking about gentrification? What is it? But it's about the equity you can build
Real estate.
by being a homeowner, which frankly, in the time frame I've been in my house for 10 years, I never could have saved the amount of money that I have earned in equity in my home in that same amount of time. No interest rate that is reasonable would have earned me that same amount of equity that I've earned in the house. So 28 days of equity, and Anjanae is going to post about February 20. Gary, make sure we get your information as well so that we can have it on the IBJ page. Any final comments from the two of you about wealth building and real estate?
Well, I just want to encourage everyone watching to also participate in the 28 days of equity by using the hashtag on your stories, hashtag on your captions, right? Anytime you're supporting a Black business or a Black person, you're doing something, you're doing an equitable act, right? Equity has so many different definitions, right? Given the context.
Mm-hmm.
But one of those definitions is recovering from years of oppression, right? From years of systematic racism, right? And violence. And we're doing that, we're undoing that by supporting each other and by supporting other Black businesses. So you guys use the hashtag. This is not going to end in 2021. Gary and I, we see the vision, right? We're going to keep it going. We're going to keep it going. So, yes.
And real quick, I want to say, just to close things out, that any real change, to create change, it starts with awareness. And and it's the same thing when it comes to ownership and generational wealth. If this is something that hasn't been talked about in your family, don't let that deter you from you being the one to get that conversation started. That's what we're here for. We're letting ourselves be available. This is something that we're very passionate about. If you can't tell, this is something that we're really dedicating our lives to in a lot of ways. It's 8 o'clock on a Tuesday. Me and her, we already worked all day, right? We worked all day, but we're still taking the time to come on here and share this knowledge and this information because we care and we know how important it is for our community. So take advantage of us and break that ice and get that conversation started on how you could become the next homeowner or even the first homeowner in your family. So I appreciate your guys' time. Thank you so much. This was a pleasure.
Thank you for that beautiful story. Anjanae, I think it was a crystal stair story. We didn't expect it to be, but it certainly was a beautiful story. Gary, we like to say that crystal stair stories may have had a few nails and some broken splinters in the wood on the steps and maybe some broken glass, but you kept walking, you kept climbing, and now you have this beautiful legacy to pass on to the next generation and to the community. So thank you very much for the way you're using your life. And of course, Anjane, you know, she's my shero. And I stalked her, Gary. I stalked her for about 3 months. Not really, but every time she showed up in a room that I was in, I was paying attention to her and loving that fire that she has in her soul. So thank you both. Much wealth, nothing but blessings to you both. Windows of heaven open, pouring out more than you have room to receive. How about that as a prophecy? Anjane, you want to close this out?
Yep, guys. Well, that is our episode for today, the Black Robe Podcast. It's still Black History Month, so you guys keep on celebrating your Blackness. Every day, we're going to keep on updating you guys with facts. As we mentioned earlier, make sure you guys are keeping updated with these police accountability bills that are current and active in our legislature here in Washington. Reach out to your representatives. We got to get these bills passed, guys. We got to protect our people. But we love seeing you. We love talking. Thank you again, Gary, for, you know, coming on our platform and sharing all your sauce. We appreciate you. But that's it. We'll see you guys next week.
One question.
Oh, what's that?
What is sauce?
I knew it.
This is the old people's education moment.
I like juice.
Oh, sauce is like a higher level of juice.
Not necessarily higher, but there's some synonyms, you know, it kind of.
Yeah, it's a synonym.
Okay.
Sauce, you know.
Does little baby have sauce or does he have juice?
I think that's a suggestive question. Carol, you gotta, I don't know. But anywho, Carol's getting educated on 21st century slang at the end of this episode.
That's part of Anjane's responsibility, is to bring me along. So thank you, Gary. All right, you two. Get busy with the rest of your evening. Thanks for being with us.